In this movie, it's my pleasure to create custom parameters for a single route instead of just using the default route's optional ID parameters. We can now create any parameters we want, even if it's just for a single user. These parameters are defined in line in the route path using curly braces around them. For example, you could use a username in the path to display a user's profile picture like in this example. Notice the username parameter is in curly braces in the route, and that exactly matches the name of the username parameter in the action method. MVC5 will match that part of the URL and pass it into the username parameter of this action method, allowing you to retrieve the correct user profile picture from the database. Let's add a new action method to our product controller called detail. This will route our users to the product detail page for a specific product. For readability and for search engine optimization, we will use the product name in the URL path. Let's accomplish this by adding a route attribute, and for the path, we'll use product / and then product's name in curly braces because that's going to be our parameter. Then we'll add a string parameter to the action method, also called product's name, and we could use that right here to look out for product name in the database, and then use that product to pass to the view to return to the user. If you want to limit the values that the parameter will match, you can use something called constraints. There are several built into MVC5, but you can also define your own custom ones. Displayed here is a list of all of the built-in constraints. As you can see, there are many different ones that can help you limit the type of parameter or the format of the data. There is even a regular expression or regex constraint for matching complex patterns. The format that you use when adding a constraint to a route parameter is the route parameter name followed by column followed by constraint name. For example, in this code, it looks for only paths that begin with user / and then a user ID, which has to be in the form of an integer value. If you would like to indicate that a parameter is optional, you can simply use a question mark after its name or after the constraint name that you have applied to it. You also want to make sure that the matching parameter on your action method allows either empty or a null value. For example, in this case, I've turned an integer into a nullable integer and I've defaulted it to a null value. If you would like to make your own custom constraint, you can do that by simply creating a class that implements iRouteConstraint interface. To implement the interface, your class will have to have a match method. The match method gets all of the data passed into it about the route, the web request, the user, and so on. It returns a true or false depending on whether or not the route should match. Once you've created your custom constraints, then you actually need to register it for the application to be able to use it. You can probably do this in the routeconfig.cs file. You can do this by getting the constraint resolver. Here, code the default inline constraint resolver, and then adding your constraint with the string key value that you want to use to identify it. Then, throughout your application, you can use that string value after your column for any parameters that you want to apply that constraint to.